Care, what I call self-care martyrdom. hmm 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 When you start to give up self-care that works for you, or self-care at all, because other people and other things need to be taken care of, that's being a self-care martyr. You're sacrificing, and in a way, you know, the act of being a martyr feels good to some people, but you have no idea how you may be hurting yourself if you are not making sure you are getting taken care of. So, self care is important to everyday life. Everybody should, let me just say that. I have to start with that because everybody should be engaging in some form of self care. And it really doesn't matter what type of job you're doing, everybody should be engaging in it. When you are a medical professional, however, you are literally trained to take care of other people. That is your job. As a physician, I was trained to take care of other people. Other physicians are trained to take care of other people. Dentists are trained. Nurses are trained to take care of other people. The thing about that, though, is intuitively, obviously, we know that self care is a good thing. Obviously, we know to let others know that self care is a good thing. And self care is so important because even as you see a physician like myself, or you see a nurse, you see your medical team, you see them for a point in time, right? Whether that point in time is when I'm sick, whether that point in time is, once a year for your annual physical, whether that point in time is you see them once every quarter, or for whatever reason, you might see them once a month, once every couple of weeks. But let's say you even see them once every couple of weeks. Let's say you go to a therapist and you see a therapist every week for an hour. For an hour. There are 168 hours to a week. That means for this point in time, your therapist sees you. And your therapist is trying to dig as deep as possible, but for this point in time, 1 hour, one in 168 is when your therapist sees you. That means that there's now 167 hours to that week that your therapist did not see you. The person that's with you most of all, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, is you. So it's very important that you be cared for. You deserve to be cared for all the time. But since you're the only one that's with yourself 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, it is imperative that you pick up the mantle and take care of yourself. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't do that. They put themselves on the back burner, right? They don't see it as a priority at all. There's a bunch of other things that need to be done, and that's what they tend to prioritize. And so self care often gets left out. So, why don't we define self care? Because I think that is super important. Self care is the intentional actions individuals take to maintain and improve their physical health, their emotional health, and their mental health and well being overall. And they do this by using practices and routines that promote health, reduce stress, and enhance overall quality of life. In that way, you can see how well mingled self care is with healthcare. So, what I was saying is that physicians and nurses and other healthcare workers are often trained to take care of others. And yet and still in that training, what is often missed is taking care of themselves as well. That is often missed. That while they are taking care of not only the, say, people in their family, say, you know, a significant other, elderly parents, children, they are also going to work to take care of more people, patients, and yet who often gets left out because they're not often trained to do what they intuitively know to do, is take care of themselves. So I want to tell you about a time in the past of a previous workplace. And um, there was one year that they decided that they were going to literally do um, an event to celebrate the employees. And this event was not like a day, it went on, I believe, for a week. I want to say for about 5 days. It went on. And during this week, I mean, did it take over everything about work? No, because the job still had to be done. But it was incorporated so well during this week. And during this week, they had different rooms set up in the office space, where you could get a neck massage, where there was literally a meditation room. And in fact, I think that was the first time I was ever introduced to the Calm app. So there was a meditation room, there were rooms for a quiet space, for alone time, for reflection time. There were activities to help you move. So there was activities for stretching, and there was, some mild exercise activities. And then there were moments set aside for just being able to network and powwow with your coworkers. Now, it didn't mean that you didn't normally talk to your coworkers, but now you could just talk to your coworkers by shooting the breeze and not necessarily about work in the time space that was set aside to do it. And it wasn't like a one time deal. It was several times throughout the week. Even a moment where we had game time and we played some games. And let me tell you, it left such a good impression on others. Now you may say, well, of course, that in those times it cut back on some of the work. That really wasn't it. When you spoke to the employees about how they felt about it once it happened, it was um, it was like an altering event for them because one, it was about celebrating the employees. So they felt that they were being shown some gratitude for the hard work that they did. But the other thing was it allowed them to feel gratitude as well. Gratitude for toward the job, gratitude for their coworkers, you know, gratitude to be in a space where they were appreciated. And let me tell you, appreciation goes such a long way as a medical professional, you know, we don't necessarily look for all of these accolades, I can tell you, but man, oh man, even on the hardest of days, a patient that walks in and says, "Oh my goodness, Dr. Wright, you're this, you're that, you're so, you know, if it wasn't for you, I couldn't have gotten this, or if it wasn't for you, this would have never been figured out." And even on your toughest of days, hearing that even once changes the game for you, and it reminds you of why you do what you do. So and because of that you feel gratitude. So in this moment there were people that felt gratitude, like they were just happy. And what did that do? That enhanced employee satisfaction, let me tell you. That totally enhanced employee satisfaction. They walked away from this every day and for weeks and months after, they walked away with this feeling of just being happy to be in that space, happy with the employer, happy with their managers. They walked away feeling more energized, more grounded, and they walked away feeling as if the employer cared, right? They also had less stress. So, why would I talk about this in this manner? What does this have to do with self care? Well, it really showed people this was done for you in this week, right? What did they really do? They had some rooms. They these rooms were set up with different things, activities, neck massages, and all of this, and meditation room, and you know all of that was done. But it didn't have to stop there. These were things you could do for yourself at home, right? Because again, even in the fact that it was for a few hours each day for a week, that was a point in time. But that the what you got from it was so big, why stop it there? These were things that you could do for yourself at home, but it was also things you could do for yourself at work. Like, why not get up and just have a moment to stretch? Why not set aside some quiet time, alone time, even if it's 5 minutes, right? Why not use, I mentioned the Calm app earlier, but there are other apps to help you with guided meditation, and it doesn't have to be long. Why not do that? Why not get up and go for a walk for 5, 10, 15 minutes as a form of self care? Why not um, get on your calendar and look to see when you could book your next massage if you're into that? Why not journal about what it is you're grateful for? All of these things could be done and were encouraged to be done. And so that was the best part of that week, was really what you got from it, not only the appreciation shown to the employees, but the teaching to the employees about how important carrying that on was, that there was no reason that they couldn't do that for themselves. And by doing it in the workplace, it also was a way to show that it is perfectly fine to do that for yourself, even in the workplace. Pick and choose. You could do it in the workplace, but also outside of the workplace. But there was no judgment if you took bits of time to give yourself some self care in the workplace. Now, why is this also important? Why is using self care strategies in the workplace and outside of the workplace so important? And I say outside the workplace, but understand, if you are engaging in self care, it is helping you in your it should if it's done correctly, it's helping you uh in your professional life, and it's helping you in your personal life. If you know anything about me, there is no like work and then life. Work is a part of life. And so we can say your professional life and your personal life, or the professional segment of your life and the personal segment of your life. But self care is helping you for both. It's very important. So, what does having like taking advantage of doing self care and practicing self care properly, what are some of the advantages of it? One, it can increase your productivity, right? And it increases your productivity because it, one, helps your cognition, it helps your focus. It's very hard to be focused when you are overwhelmed and when you are tired. Very hard to be focused, right? So it helps you focus, it helps your concentration, and ultimately it helps you to be more productive, right? It reduces stress. That's what self care does for you. It reduces stress. That's the second thing. Everyday Health did a survey, and in the survey, one third of the participants said that they had visited a doctor for something that was stress related. But 57%, that's more than half, said that in the year prior to the survey, at least once they had been paralyzed by stress. So clearly, stress needs to be managed properly and reduced, and even needs to be managed in a prophylactic manner so that you aren't getting paralyzed by stress, so that stress is not stopping your trajectory at work, your upward trajectory at work, right? So it's important that you do that. We already talked about this. Self care improves job satisfaction. When you're doing something, when you're doing self care, I encourage you to do something that, one, grounds you, two, energizes you, three, makes you happy, four, recharges you. When you feel happy and recharged and energized, you are more satisfied with life. And your job is part of that. And your job is part of that. Now, is it a given that every job that you have is going to feel that way? Maybe not, because some jobs may not be for you. Some people are lucky that every job that they've ever gone to has been one that they've learned from and one that they have drawn positive from. But sometimes a job is not for you, and despite the self care, um, it may not lead to job satisfaction. But I tell you what, self care is it helps you with build your self awareness. So when you're building your self awareness, you can become more aware of, even, is this job right for me or not? You know, now that I'm engaged in self care, am I feeling more job satisfaction? Is this the right job for me? Because when you can answer that question, you can figure out, okay, you know what? Now that and I'm feeling energized and recharged, you know what? This job is cool, and I can see the good in it. No job is perfect, but I can see the good, and I can see how I'm benefiting, and I can see ways to benefit more to meet my goals and my values as well. But in that self awareness, you could also say, you know what? It could be the other way around. This job is not for me. I'm still thankful that I have it. It helps me pay my bills, but this job is not for me. But now you can make a plan, right? So this is really super important. Self care also allows you to take alone time so that your brain can have a moment to be more creative and innovative, and that's big for the workplace. To be able, even in medicine, to be able to think, have a moment to think things through, and say, this is a better, I think, coming up with these processes will better enhance care for my patients. coming up with these processes will allow me to be more efficient when caring for my patients, you know, um, or when working with my colleagues. So, super important. It gives you some alone time so that you can be more creative, more innovative, and even more resilient. Even helps you build up some mental strength. And the last thing I would say is when you are caring for yourself, this is very important. It teaches you how to advocate for yourself, right? Because in that moment, in a world where we not only value productivity, sometimes we can go overboard with productivity and then put our self-care on the back burner. But when you are now prioritizing your self care because you know how important that is for your health and overall well being, your physical, mental, and emotional health, and your overall well being, you're actually in that moment advocating for yourself and saying, I'm going to advocate for myself and make myself a priority over some of the other things. I will get to those other things, but I am going to make sure this part of me, these parts of me are taken care of. When you can do that, it's almost like you're advocating for yourself to yourself, right? When you can do that, it becomes easier for you to go out there and advocate in the world for the things that you need, advocate in the world to other people for the things that you the goals that you have, your values, and the things that you need to be successful, to prosper, to move continue to move upward, right? So this is why it is so important to do self care. Now, let's talk about some of the mistakes because let me tell you something. There are mistakes around self care when we do them, right? So, I was a co author on a book called Self Care is Not a Mani Penny. And the premise was that mani pedis and self care, wonderful. I think they're wonderful. Um, and the women I speak to that love to do manicures and pedicures, I used to love to do manicures and pedicures myself, often say this, that it's time to themselves. It's time where they are focusing in that moment to for something for them. They're getting a manicure and pedicure not for, you know, that person over there, that person over there, and at that moment they're not doing anything for their children, they're not doing anything for their significant other, they're doing something for them, and I 100% support that. For me it was a little different. I used to love that, absolutely. I especially loved, I remember there was this one place that I would go to on a Friday. Once I found it, I don't even know how I found it, but once I found it, oh my goodness, I thought it was a fluke until I realized this is what they did every Friday. So I would go there on a Friday and I would go to get my nails done, a French manicure on my fingernails, a plain color. I don't go for all the accoutrements. I really don't. But here's what I loved. They had Friday happy hour, but I didn't know that was what it was called. I was like, I only went on Fridays because that was the end of the work week and that was the time I had, right? Because the next day I'd have off. It was Saturday. And I would go there and I would sit down, and the time I got there was apparently like a happy hour. And they would come by and they would ask me, would you like water, tea, or a glass of champagne? What? What are you talking about? So the first time I got the water, which I thought was phenomenal. No one had ever asked me that before. The second time, I got the tea. I love tea. So the second time I got the tea, I was like, this is great. And they made sure to do that while they were doing your pedicure. So your hands weren't going to get messed up because they weren't doing your hands yet. The third time, and each time after that, I got the glass of champagne. It was the end of the work week, y'all. I got the glass of champagne, right? And so I loved doing it. Made sure I went there when I was getting my nails done for my wedding. Loved it, right? But somewhere along the line, I'm not exactly sure where along the line, but I do know it was somewhere between my first and second child. I just it just doesn't seem important anymore. And I wondered if it was maybe you're just tired. You have a child now, and whatever. But I noticed when I go, even when I have the time, I just it just doesn't do it for me anymore. I will get my nails done if I have something important to do, but other than that, no. But for the women that do it, kudos, right? Kudos to doing it because it gives you your alone time, right? However, as a mistake that I see people make is that they will sometimes do self care that is not individualized to them. So if I continued to go to get manicures and pedicures done, it would really have been because I guess that's the thing to do. That's what it looks like self care to other people. That's what people tell me is self care. So I guess it's the thing to do. So I'm going to continue to get my nails done. But for me, it didn't feel like self care anymore. Sometimes people will continue to do a particular thing because that's what they used to do. That's what they've always done. They're not even thinking about whether it's given what it used to give, which is some alone time, some me time, some recharge time, some grounding. They're not even thinking about that. They're doing it almost like a robot because it's what they've always done, right? Okay. Another mistake is to do something that does not to do things. Let me not say something because a particular activity can take care of one thing. Maybe it takes care of your physical, whereas another one takes care of your emotional. But if you're only doing if you have multiple activities and it really is only taking care of say your physical and you're not taking care of your overall needs, right? It's time to take a look at your self care. Maybe you need to add something on while you're trying to see if this is really working for you. Maybe you need to add a few more activities on. Self care activities don't have to happen all at once, right? To take care of all of you, right? So that's another mistake I see people make. A third mistake, lack of a routine, lack of a regimen. So if you do self care today and then you don't do it again for another 3 months and it's haphazard, it is more likely to go undone, to get pushed out as far as possible, right? And not to be done in an optimal way, not to be able to put your all in it and get out from it what you're supposed to get out from it, right? It's kind of like saying you're going to go on a vacation, and I'm just using this as an example, saying you're going to go on a vacation and you just keep saying it, but you haven't picked a date, a time, nothing. You haven't looked at flights. We just keep saying we're going to go, we're going to go, we're going to go. And believe me, I have been guilty of that. I remember for years telling my husband that I want to go to Italy, even when we were dating, but I never looked at anything. I didn't do anything. And I would tell him every year, I want to go to Italy. I want to go to Italy. I want to go to Italy. And then one day in like 2019, 2009. Yeah, I think it was 2009. I said to him, "Yeah, I want to go to Italy." He's like, "Uh huh." I said, "So we're going to Italy?" He's like, "Right." I said, "No, I'm not kidding. I've already booked the villa, and and now I'm looking at flights. Can you take off such and such a date?" He was in shock. He was at work. He's on the phone. He's like, "What are you talking about?" Because finally, I sat down and said, "Stop talking about it and be about it." I made some action. And after that, I made it a point of duty to look at when I said I want a vacation, I would pick a date and go for it. Start planning the next vacation. Similarly, when you're talking about self care, rather than just talk about it, you have to be about it. You have to put it on, say, a calendar. Put a routine behind it. When you put a routine behind something, like if you know you're going to work out 3 times a week and you make it the same 3 days a week at the same time, always in the morning, maybe, or something like that, you are more likely to follow it because it's a routine. So if you decide to do some self care, like several times a week, some form of daily self care, or even once a week, you know that that's your time. You've made a routine, you've made a regimen. So a lack of a regimen is a mistake, right? Another mistake, self care, what I call self care martyrdom. hmm 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 When you start to give up self care that works for you, or self care at all, because other people and other things need to be taken care of, that's being a self care martyr. You're sacrificing. And in a way, you know, the act of being a martyr feels good to some people, but you have no idea how you may be hurting yourself if you are not making sure you are getting taken care of. And so when I hear people say, when I hear people say, self care is not selfish because, you know, how can I give to others if I'm not giving to myself? And because I know that self care is not selfish, well, who are you trying to convince, really? Right? Now we're still thinking about other people in order to justify doing self care. And we have to be the self care more. Of course, I need to do self care in order to take care of other people. And I know that's something that some medical professionals feel as well. Well, I was trained to take care of people, but when they do tell themselves, yeah, but let's do some self care so that I could be better able to take care of those people. That's great and all, but you don't need to justify your self care. Selfishness to your self care, in my opinion, is okay. And in the end, will other people benefit? Yes, but that should not be your first thought. Those people will benefit in the end, but your first thought and your priority is making sure that you're okay. That's the priority. So these are the mistakes that we tend to see when people, think about self care and doing self care and how they do self care. But making sure that you do some self care, whether it be outside of work or at work, because it can be done and it doesn't have to be long winded, it could be done in minutes, is key. What do I mean? It can be done in minutes. You can do some mindfulness techniques. You can do exercise at work. You can find pockets of alone time, even if that means, you know what, I'm going to step out for 15 minutes and I'm going to, if you drove to work, I'm going to go in my car and sit down. Even if you do that, that in itself and taking that alone time is some self care. Meditating for 5 minutes is self care, and it helps you to do to reduce your stress and to promote health and promote overall well being while helping to promote your satisfaction at work, helping to promote gratitude, helping to promote energy, creativity, resilience, productivity, all of those things. So here are three things that I implore you to do today. Okay, if you don't already have some self-care things that you can be doing on a regular basis, and another reason to do it on a regular basis, honestly, is when you employ self-care techniques and you employ them regularly, even several times a week or daily, they actually act as a way to prevent stress. So if you get stressed out a lot, you may find that you get stressed out less often, or you may find when you get stressed, you can take it down, reduce it more quickly, right? So it's preventative in a way. This self care and practicing self care even within the workplace space. And if you work from home, then home is your workplace space. Wonderful. What's the excuse? So here are three things that you can do. One, find activities that energize you, focus you, help you to concentrate better, ground you, and that gives you joy. It needs to be specific to you, not everybody else, right? Now, other people may be involved. That's great. But it still needs to be specific to those things. They help you feel energized and they ground you and they make you happy and they help you to focus and just do that. So that's number one. Number two is to prioritize yourself and your self care. Okay? Prioritize yourself and your self care. And the best way to prioritize is start putting it on the calendar. Just figure out what days work best and make that the routine. Start putting it on the calendar, right? So that's number two. And number three is to make it routine. Have a routine, okay? Make a regimen. Have a self care regimen, and by that, sometimes you know that certain things may cause you stress. Certain things are coming up, and you know just how to care for yourself in a way that you can minimize stress and still meet your goals, have that success, propel forward, show up as the star that you are, and show up for your patients, build rapport, really focus, and be able to help your patients the best way you can, right? Because that's what your job is for, right? That's what you're there for. That was your goal as a physician or a nurse. That was your goal. But even if you're another type of professional and your goal was to be the best tech person, or your goal was to meet the metrics in the report, or whatever, or your goal was to be the best teacher and get all of your students to pass the class this year. When you are taking care of yourself, you are more likely to meet your goals and your values. But the best way to do that is to have a regular regimen of doing self care. Okay? So that's it. And I hope you understand why it's important to not only employ self care strategies, but that they can be powerful, not just outside of the workplace, but in the workplace as well. If you stick to, if you stuck around and you're still with us, thank you very much. Like, comment, subscribe, tell a friend about the Balance to Excellence show. It is always a pleasure to talk to you guys, and let me know in the comments if you are employing self-care strategies in the workplace. What is it that you're doing and how is it working for you? I would love to know. Love it when people engage. And we will talk again soon.